This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So on the topic of Microsoft, let's talk about nuclear power. It was announced this week that Microsoft and, what's the name of the company? Something with a C, but searching for C is not going to work. The power company that owns the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant have decided to reopen said power plant in order to power Microsoft's data centers. In particular, they will be reactivating Unit 1, which is important because Unit 2 is the one that's famous for having a massive meltdown in 1979. If you've ever heard the expression going 3 Mile Island, essentially meaning that somebody has gone off the deep end or gotten so angry that they look like they might explode, this is what they're referring to, is this nuclear power plant. It totally slowed the growth of nuclear power in the United States in the same way that, Chernobyl did in parts of Europe. Obviously Fukushima in parts of Asia. All of that has had their impacts here in the United States. 3 Mile Island was a big part of the slowdown in nuclear adoption. However, it's important to note that while Unit 2 went down in 1979, Unit 1 went down in 2019. They only took it offline 5 years ago. So it operated 40 years past what the meltdown reactor did without any issue. It provided power all over its region. So while colloquially and culturally we think of 3 Mile Island as this big disaster, 45 years ago, it had been providing power to the Northeast literally until 5 years ago. So what's happening? The reactor, again, has been offline for a couple of years, but Microsoft needs power in the Northeast, and they also have a public pledge to use less carbon-focused power, and so this is one of their solutions. Obviously, anytime a nuclear reactor goes online, there is backlash for various reasons. Some people feel that it's not actually green. Some people feel that it's more harm than good. Some people focus on Unit 2's meltdown 45 years ago. And so there's, cultural fear around that happening again. So there will be a fight on their hands here, probably less so because, again, it's only been offline for a couple of years. But they do plan to be up and running in 2028. So it does appear that retrofitting, doing upgrades to the reactor, getting the facility more modernized is part of their timeline, but also I would guess that timeline includes expected legal challenges, because I think every new construction has gone to court in the last at least 20 years. So I suspect that this one will as well. But they seem to be pretty confident that since it's only been offline 5 years, they should be able to bring it online again without a whole lot of public backlash. It's an interesting move. You don't really hear about new nuclear reactors so much anymore, Avram.
But maybe you should. I mean, there's a lot of argument that it's much better for the environment than then those that that lead that worsen climate change. I mean, it's you end up with nuclear waste, and there is a small risk of um, of a meltdown. But I mean, if you look at all the places that have been using nuclear energy, um, it's been for the most part a success, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there was problems in Fukushima, right, because of flooding. There was
And
Chernobyl, which was
training issues,
yeah,
which is an important
right,
point because what happened, the actual disaster and the response to it was hindered by training issues.
right. So I mean, obviously, if something is run by people, it can be run poorly, and there can
Mm-hmm.
be issues. But it seems to be like it's a technology that's proven
Mm-hmm.
to produce a lot of energy without uh, without creating more greenhouse gases.
Right.
So like
800,
that's
835 megawatts out of just Unit 1, which is the
right.
older of the two
So
reactors.
it seems to me like a perfectly good idea to use that for power for our growing energy needs. But I do want to point out on the flip side of this is that AI is horrible for the environment
Mm-hmm.
because the amount of uh, eh, you know liquid consumption and power consumption going into something that in a lot of cases is you know kind of a gimmick and a toy is is really bad. I mean, you talk about. I think there was some projection of like just like what OpenAI wants to use in terms of power. Um, it increases the global carbon footprint at a time when obviously we're we're way behind goals to have less carbon emission, uh, both here in the U.S. and globally. So things are going to pop up that require power, but I mean the amount, like I think we did a story this week on Tom's Hardware about just the amount of water it takes to do like one email with like I'm trying to remember, what is it?
3 bottles of
uh
water per
yeah,
100 words of text generated.
yes, yes. So 3 bottles of water for every 100 words of text generated by GPT-4.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I'm I
Now,
am holding a bottle of water for effect, but my webcam's no longer updating, so it's not helping.
yes. So
But
So my question about that though is, I don't. One thing I've never gotten, and maybe we can explain this better to the audience, is why is water always the thing that people are talking about when they're talking about AI power usage, not emissions, not power, water? Why are we
mhm.
always talking about water?
I think part of it has to do with the fact that water is something that the average person can visualize, right? Because
Where
right,
is it going
it's
though?
heat. It's burned off as part of the heat dissipation process on the data center.
So it's being used as cooling for
Yes.
cooling.
Yeah.
And what happens? So what happens? I mean, the water gets recycled, right? It goes around, it goes back around again. Cools off and goes back around again, right?
So in in a data center system, in a consumer system too, the liquid isn't forever, right? The coolant in a liquid cooled system, um, if you use it heavily, you do need to top it up from time to time because no system is perfect, right? It there will be loss in a data center system. Um, you're not just directly cooling the machines, you're also cooling the data center itself with air conditioning and all of that, and that requires for large systems like that. There's water that's used. There's a lot of water that's liquid that's burned. It could be
So
water. It could be other
where
coolants.
does it go? I mean, does it get recirculated in the system? Does it become gas? Like, what happens to that liquid?
Vaporized outside of the system. When they're talking about loss, they're talking about the stuff that doesn't get retained in the system.
So does that just become clouds and
Yeah,
rain down again as part of the water cycle?
yeah,
So then that's not really a problem, is it?
yeah. It's not as big of a problem as it sounds, as compared to the electricity issue, which is in reality the thing that should be talked about.
Right,
Um,
that's what I don't
but
get. Why don't we talk about the electricity?
because electricity usage, I think, for a normal person is just hard to wrap your head around, whereas you can visualize 3 bottles of water. Because what is
Yeah,
what is 835 megawatts, right? You and I might be able to kind of visualize conceptually, because we know what 550 watts is the power supply, 600 or 850 depending on your PC. We know what a desktop PC power
well, you
supply
could.
looks like. You can extrapolate that, but the average person isn't able really to
Well, I think
to
it could go to carbon footprint then.
sure carbon footprint, but then stuff like reactivating 3 Mile Island is still producing electricity and usage without actually talking about the uh, the carbon footprint. Yeah, there are issues with all uh, measurements, right? Except for megawatts, right? That is a hard and fast thing that we can talk about. That's a consistent measurement, no matter what megawatts is something, but it also doesn't show quite the same impact. All measurements and scales create their issues. But yeah, water is not the right one to be talking about, because it's not like the molecules are broken up and it's water that's lost to history.
Right. I
It's
mean that it makes it sound like someone's taking the water and spilling it on the ground and then it's just gone forever. Although, I
or
mean,
or
it
shooting it into
probably
space,
doesn't.
and it is gone forever. It's lost, you know, to the history books. But that's not really what's happening. It just goes back into the water cycle.
I mean, I suppose it might result in some problems if it was coming from an area where there was a
Mm-hmm.
lack of clean drinking water because they can't use salt water, right? It
Right.
has to be fresh water. So if it was an area that was already suffering with a drought or something like that, then this would not be a great use of
Right.
resources.
Which, say in California, can oftentimes be a problem.
Right. I mean, so definitely, definitely calls to maybe put your data center somewhere where there's plenty of water. But
Hmm.
um,
Or
but
be able
yeah, I
to
mean,
create to to be able to process water to a cleanliness that's good enough for your cooling system, but may not be designed to be potable.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the limits are there, but yeah,
Right.
like take water nobody wants to drink. I mean, they don't need it to be drinkable, right?
Right.
So
Exactly. Figure
yeah,
out
I
how
mean,
to how
I'd
to
like.
distill reclaimed water or something like that, because distilling that would actually probably be a pretty easy process. There's things that you could do to address water issues that are more direct than the power issue, right? Because the power issue really is the thing that it comes down to. Because if you're worried about carbon emissions, traditional power line is not the solution for AI because it uses a ridiculous amount of power. In fact, I think I saw this week that AI is already using more than crypto has across its history,
Yep.
which is a
Yeah. I
huge
mean,
statistic.
right. And so it just seems to me, look, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about AI and some of the problems with it, right? Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the things that people are doing with it now really are just a toy. Now, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes unfortunately people are using the toy for very serious purposes, like
Right.
trying to do the job of a real person. But a lot of but like they are really Microsoft and Google are really trying to push AI on you at every
Yeah.
step of your experience. And they're trying to push it on you without even monetizing it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I cannot tell you how many times, like, I open up an email in Gmail and it's like, which I haven't even written a subject line for it. It's asking me, like, to have AI write the email for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's trying so hard to get you to use these features. And one thing we could talk about, but I won't spend a ton of time on it, is the whole fiasco with the Copilot key, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft decided that Copilot is the future of its marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So it it got a whole bunch of laptop vendors to put the Copilot key on their keyboard, replacing sometimes other useful keys like print screen to the right of your spacebar.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I presume because a lot of people aren't using that key, they are adding a feature to Windows 11 that allows you to remap the key to launch any other Windows Store package program.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about that?
Oh yeah. I I saw so in my feed I had two articles back to back, and one was from PC World, and its description was like the headline was weird. It was like you can remap the key, and I'm like, it's the first thing Abram did when he got a
Well,
Copilot Plus,
yes. I mean,
and then the next one in my feed was from Tom's Hardware, and the headline was clear about what it was. I'm like, oh, I understand. Microsoft is building it in to Windows, not
right.
PC World has just figured out that you can remap
Yeah, I
keys.
mean, yes. I mean, yes. Like as I've said on the show before, I love to use something like Auto Hotkey to remap my keys, but most people don't do those things. They should, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't, right? And so because it's some work, but like here it is, they put it into the settings menu to make it easy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Although you can't remap it to do anything you want, it has to launch an app that is, it says ASIX package, so I assume that means a Windows Store app.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, right, so you can remap it to launch a Windows Store app. Okay, but to me, the fact that they decided to build that into Windows suggests that they are hearing complaints that like this key is worthless.
Yeah.
People
Yeah,
don't
for
need it.
sure.
I mean, granted, the history of having keys that were built onto the keyboard to market a program has been pretty poor. Wasn't
Yeah.
there? Weren't there some keyboards with a Microsoft Office key
Mm-hmm.
at one time?
Yep.
And I know
And
there are
then
keyboards with Cortana,
Cortana.
right?
Yep.
So and I remember I've been working with computers so long that I remember when the Windows key came out,
Yep.
right? And that it would launch your start menu. And my first thought about it was, why do I need this? But the reason why the Windows key has become so useful is because it's a modifier key, so that you could have Windows plus other keys and make a keyboard combo. But you can't do that with a Cortana key because the Cortana key is actually mapped to be F23 plus left shift plus Windows key. So it is already a series of keys, right? It is not. It cannot be used as a mod key. So I mean, we could use the Windows ecosystem could use another modifier key at this point. Like we could use another besides
Sure.
Control, Windows, Alt, and Shift. Uh, we could use another key, but for our keyboard shortcuts, but that's not what this is. So anyway,
Yeah.
uh, um,
And I understand why it's only able to launch a Windows app. Like I annoyingly I understand like deep down in how they designed it that is causing that. They might be able to fix that
yeah,
with some kernel changes, but like I haven't been in the code, but I can tell you how they designed it. Right, it's the pipeline is very targeted. So now they're going to just give you the ability to customize the string for the A6 package. Um, but yeah, it's annoying. Although here I
right,
sit with my keyboard on this computer that just has two Windows keys.
right, right.
I would
So
actually have preferred a context key to a second Windows key on this.
I
But
mean, you can remap it. You
yeah.
can remap it. You don't even need to use a program like AutoHotkey. Use Sharp keys if you want to turn one. If you just want to turn one key into another key, as opposed to creating keyboard combination,
Mm-hmm.
or rewrapping a combination of keys, you can use Sharp keys, a great free program that just writes the registry for you, and it will change any key into any other key. So I use that on all my computers, all my key to turn like the insert key into print screen because I never need the
Mm-hmm.
insert key, but
Yeah,
I don't have print screen dedicated print screen on a lot of things. Uh, so, and I
makes
turn my
sense.
numpad into media keys. Um, but um, but anyway, to make a long story short, what were we talking about? Power
Nuclear
usage,
power.
right, for AI. Nuclear power usage for AI. So the power, yes, we shouldn't. It is doing something that's very like cutesy with a lot of
Yeah.
the things people do with it, and it is eating up a ton of power. I personally don't have a problem with them using, more nuclear power, but I
Mm-hmm.
think if we're going to do that, maybe we should use it to replace some of the existing non-green energy that we're using now, uh, and or build up for other energy needs. I think that there's a lot of
Yeah.
waste going on here with the over exuberance for throwing AI into everything as marketing. Like we've
Yeah.
talked to a number of companies that make PCs, and behind the scenes they're like, "Look, we know that there's not a lot you can actually do with this that people need to do, but it's a great way to try to sell things."
Yeah. Yeah. And and to your point, there is not a single topic on tonight's show save for well, not even because I it'll probably almost certainly rear its head in the pilch point. I don't think there's a single topic tonight that AI hasn't touched either officially or um, through rumor.
Yep.
And we're going to talk later in the show in news from the tubes. We're going to talk about one of those cutesy nonsense usages of AI
Yeah.
and a place that
Yep.
it absolutely does not need to live. Um,
Yeah.
so
Look, I mean, if they want to use it to try and find like cure for cancer, then that's a great use of what we call AI, which
right,
is pattern matching. But generative AI used for art, or what we call art, is not only destructive to people's careers, theft of intellectual property in many cases, but also terrible for the environment. So a terrible waste of power. So, it's good that they're finding new ways to meet energy needs, but I don't know if this is the best use of the energy.
Totally agree. Um, we will see how this goes and whether this announcement triggers any additional movements in this direction. The movement has been totally in the other direction, with countries like Germany outlawing nuclear energy entirely. Their last plant shut down in April of last year, and no new ones can be built in the country. So there are some public perception issues with it, and maybe this announcement will help change those perceptions, or it could make them worse. There's no telling. We will see how it goes over the next 4 years before their planned 2028 reignition. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course, hit the notification bell, because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.